Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the Framing Podcast, and I have an amazing guest in the warm seat today. And he's an entrepreneur, a speaker, and a marketer, award-winning marketer, by the way. He is the founder of Splash Effect, a digital marketing and creative agency, and soon to be the author of a book. Should we mention that name? It will be The Burnout Gamble.
It will be The Burnout Gamble, and you heard the fire alarm go off, and perfectly timed. The warning of burnout, of fire.
That's a fire to come. I can feel the heat. So thanks so much for being here. I remember the first time we met, we were on a flight both going to Nova Scotia to speak at a conference.
Oh, yeah.
And, we had connected on Twitter or something, I guess. And then, my wife and I were sitting there and we were like looking at, and I'm like, is that Hamza? Is that Hamza? I'm like, I think so. So I took this picture of the back of your head and I texted it to you and tweeted it to you. I'm like, is this you, dude? Because it's the back.
I remember that, man. I remember that. That was awesome. And then we got on the cab ride to the venue.
Yeah. That was a great conference, awesome. Man. That was something special. It was,
wasn't it?
Yeah. They were like, this is really good. I'm like, no, this is really, really amazing. What was that one called?
The Starting Point Conference.
Starting Point Conference at St. Mary's University.
St. Mary's University
in Nova Scotia. Yeah.
And you can tell how good a conference is going to be based on all the preliminary work that happens, all of the conversations from the organizers with the speakers. Caitlin, that was her name, right?
Yeah,
Caitlin was just so like over communicative, meticulous, very accommodating. I just felt like my hand was being held throughout the entire couple of months leading up to that. And so when I showed up, I just knew it was going to be, well supported, well staffed, well organized. I had a blast there. I would love to go back.
Yeah, that's we've worked with them over the last couple of years, and like they want us to come back, and we're like, we can't. We're having a baby. Like, they're like, you can bring your baby. I'm like, we can't bring a baby to a talk. Yeah. I mean, it's like you put a baby on stage, it's like game over. There's nothing you can say that's more important than. So.
You would be the first, because I watched the TEDx talk that you and Gloria did. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine now if the trio of you did a talk together, right? That's amazing.
We always laugh. We say this kid was on a TED stage long before he was, before he was one, he was on a TED stage.
Yeah, he was. Man.
He was about 8.5 months. She was 8.5 months pregnant when we did that. So we had all of these strategies in the event that she went into labor on stage, because it's a little bit of a stressful situation. You're on a TED talk. There's like 6 cameras, like hundreds of people.
It's valid. Yeah, you have to think about that,
like, right? I was like, babe, you might go into labor on TED. And we're talking about fear. And we had the whole thing planned out. We were like, look, if your water breaks, she's like, I'm finishing this talk. I was like, my ass.
That would have been the most viral video of that year. Like, that would have been shared around the world.
My water just broke, and we're finishing this talk. This is like woman power. It would have been
amazing,
super epic. I'm like, oh my goodness.
His Throwback Thursday picture when he's older is going to be amazing. Just a picture of the two of you on stage, like throwback to my first TEDx talk.
First TEDx talk. I broke the water on stage. And there was so much advice for us not to do that. Like, we had to get special permission because they normally don't like 2 people speaking on stage at the same time. It's always these solo talks. And like, Ted had to be like, we don't know. We don't recommend it. There've only been like, 5 people have ever done it. And it's like really iffy. And, we hired like a speaking coach because we had such different speaking styles.
Yeah.
I'm a little more laid back and chill and slow. I like to call it the second mouse that gets the cheese. And Glow is Glow's the early bird that catches the worm, So it's
she's on animated.
She's on. She's leaning in. She's like, "Let's go faster. Let's do this." And it's just how do those two people coexist on a stage and it's not competing for attention and not doing this? And it was super cool. I really appreciate that coaching that we got.
Yeah, man. It all came together. Congratulations. How did you feel when you walked off the stage? Because the two of you have talked many times before this, but was this talk any different for you guys?
That actual talk was a pivotal point in our life, relationship, and the way we ran our business and everything. It was just
snap. Really?
It was like it was
convergence. Yeah.
We have it recorded. I'm like, that was the moment things changed because it was so calm. By the time we got out on that stage, there was no pressure. We got out there and, well, I could speak for myself. It was just like, hey, it was like a living room chat with someone. It was just, hey, everybody, how you doing? What's up? Like, let's just do this. And I think we were the first or second people on. We're like early on in opening the TEDx deal, and it was, yeah, it was just like, oh, like you hear that hum and like everything goes away. It was like that. And then we came off stage and I was just like, yeah, let's just get a coffee and go hang. Like, it was just so
That's amazing, man. I'm so happy to hear that, because like I've talked to a bunch of people now who've done TEDx talks, and they all say the same thing. Like their first one was a game changer for them, in terms of like what it did for their career, personal life, even just their confidence. Like for me, when I walked off my first TED talk, I remember that like that was the moment where I told myself like, okay, imposter syndrome, I see you. Like I'm fine. I've finally seen you, because I went up on stage and I blacked out. I'm not even kidding. My first TEDx talk, I go up on stage. As soon as the timer starts, I blacked out, and I don't remember anything on that stage. All I remember is like in some weird, sci-fi way of zooming out of myself and standing behind me and watching me talk. It was so surreal.
Wow.
And I remember like in that moment, I saw my imposter syndrome, like on the right over there, just like a sort of like Smeagol-like version of myself that's like always like talking me down, saying you're not good enough. Yeah, why are we up there? Like
They'll
all of
see
this thing.
everything is a lie.
Yeah, exactly. Like this little like just a horrible creature on the right. And I was like, you know what, dude, you're gonna shut up right now, because this is a huge moment. And I feel like after that, that conversation with the imposter syndrome in me has become a lot more, we have an understanding now. We have an understanding that whenever we go into these settings that require my confidence, or require me to be like on and be my best self, I tell the imposter to sit down and shut up. You can talk to me after this. But in this moment right now, I need you to behave.
Just chill out. I got this. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That was good, man. I feel like that was the time that I deaded the nerves.
Yeah, it's I think identifying it, being able to see it, being able to just totally own that, because there's nothing like a TED talk to have you go, hold on.
Yeah.
Like it has this whole thing about it. Like there's this aura, there are these expectations, there's a level, like people know that, you do this right. This is the game changer. It's not, it could be. This is the moment. This is the moment, right? Of talking on for anybody who's doing talks. So it's
100%, man.
It showed up like this. I mean, we had a life coach, not a life coach, speaking coach.
Speaking coach, yeah.
And
which is really smart, yeah.
Acting. He taught us more about acting and just being, and being rooted and grounded in who you are. And he's like, it doesn't matter what you say. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't matter what I say? It's a TED talk. It has to be. And he's like, that's in your head. He's like, how you're being in that moment is more important than what you say. And it was like, weeks of training and all this type of stuff. And it was true. By the time we got there, to be honest, we made mistakes in our TED talk. Things were out of sequence. It didn't matter.
But only you saw them.
I'm the only person that knows that happened, or where. No one knows. Everyone's like, oh, that was flawless. I'm like, not according to what we had on the screen, So it was, and like even having the speaker's notes, like we got rid of those. We're just like, stop it. And we had a talk practiced up until I think 1 week before that, and then we threw it out.
Oh wow!
We threw the whole thing out.
What?
Yeah.
You guys have a death wish. What's up with that?
The organizers didn't even know. We showed up and went, yeah, here's a new thing we're doing, and they were like, but we had everything in practice. I'm like, yeah, this one's better. They're like, okay.
It makes sense, man. Parkinson's law, right? Work expands so as to fill the time allocated for its completion. If you give yourself a week to crank out a talk, I mean, you glory on yourself. Like your energy, your capacity is going to like transform, so that's like the only thing that you're going to get done. And you think differently. You're more creative. You're more alert. You're more inventive. So that totally makes sense. But wow, a week before, y'all are brave.
We were just like, should we do this? Like we have, they have the copy. It's in a Google Drive. Everyone's seen it. It's been signed off by like 19 people. And we're like, we're not doing that. We're like, and like I hand drew all of the slides.
Yeah.
Like everyone was just like, what are you doing? Like everybody has these beautiful, graphic slides and keynote, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna hand draw them, and I'm going to change the entire talk. So we handed
That
that
is
to them.
incredible.
We did the rehearsal like the day before. A hot mess. Like, so glad we did that because they put everything in. We get up on stage, we're doing our talk, like the other speakers are in the audience and everybody's taking their turn and blah 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 blah. We get up on stage, do the thing. Every single slide is wrong. The words are off. They're not coinciding with pictures. Stuff, it was just like all over the place, and we just kept going. We were just like, what about this? Da, 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 da. We just like came off stage. They're like, how was that? I said, well, everything was off. Like, the pictures were this. They were like, what do you mean it was off? They go, that was awesome. And we're like, nope, nope. So we had to go up there, sit with the person, rearrange, no, this side goes with this, change this word, do that here, rebuild the whole thing with that person. I'm like, okay, that's good. And the only reason we were able to actually be that cool and that confident with it was that it was coming from nothing. It was just pure from the inside. Like, this is actually what we want to talk about. Slide or no slide, like, those things can go away. I'm just going to be with you and just be in that conversation and just trust that I'm going to say the right thing and it's going to be what you need to hear. And that dance and trusting that, even when the entire thing fell off the rails and we just kept going and people were cheering at the end. They were like, that's the best one ever. We're like, we're so sorry that is not where we need to be. It's like, it'll be better to...
Dude,
and it was just...
You've completely changed the way that I'm going to see this talk again. I'm going to watch it like right after this. After the appointment, I'm going to watch it again and notice all of this now, knowing that this is the work that went into it. And I think almost when you think about it now, do you think that the talk that you eventually end up doing, you eventually did, was better than the talk that you had prepared because it was more natural? It came from the heart. It came from a different place.
100%. Natural is always best. It's organic, you know.
Organic, yeah.
It's the whole foods of
free,
the talk.
locally sourced, yeah.
100-mile diet. It's if you're trying to do something, it just never comes from that place. Like, it's, you know, it's like confidence. It's like seeing the imposter syndrome over there and say, hang on for a minute, I got this. And knowing that it's
interesting you say that. Because like my first speaker coach was like, hey, Hamza, stop focusing and stressing about how you're going to say it. Just focus on what you're going to say. And the words are going to find themselves. And I was so intent with my first talk of memorizing it that I just gave up because I was a poor student. Like, straight up, I was a poor student. I had a very tough time memorizing things. Even now, I forget things very easily.
Yeah, look at my notes for our interview. This is it, one page.
There you go. But I'm a visual learner. I like to be in the moment. I like to trust that I've done this enough time. There's been enough repetition that will make me speak to it with some sort of authority. So when I got up on stage, I was like, you know what? Memorize the first minute just so you feel comfortable, like you've done this before.
Yeah, it's
almost like a buzzer. It's like lie detector.
Everything. The muscle memory kicks in, like your competence, your unconscious competence kicks in.
Unconscious competence, I love that.
And you end up, once you get started and just start moving, like, you know this, you got this. Like, you wouldn't be asked to speak on a TED stage if you weren't awesome. So all of those things we were talking about, like, are we the right ones and this? And, you know, the guy called us like 6-8 months in advance. He's like, listen, I really want you to be on this. I got invited to do it. We're like, you're inviting us.
Inviting me.
We have to apply. And I was like, oh, no pressure. He's like, yeah, we're kind of putting the whole thing on your back, so make sure it's awesome. I'm like, dude, this is like not enough pressure in the world. And now you're going to add.
That's so cool, man.
And he was in the back, like, didn't tell anyone. And he was like, no, really, like, everyone's looking at you guys. I'm like, it's like, okay, so just clearly they see something that we don't embody at this point. And I'm like, I'm just going to trust it. If you say I'm good enough to have everyone ride on this, I'm just going to believe you.
So have you owned it since then? Like, I think you have, right? Yeah. Like, I've always seen you and I've seen Gloria as like two very confident, accomplished, very creative people. And I feel like you've been owning it long before the TED Talk. But like, internally, do you feel differently after that? Do you feel like you're leaning into it a bit more?
A lot more. It continues to grow and evolve.
It's amazing.
As a creative, how I've used it in the past is stop looking for advice and feedback. Stop, like, just know I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. Like, what feedback are you going to give me? Like, if I don't know at this point that this is good or this is done, you know, Picasso said it best. He said, how do you know you're finished making love? Because at some point you're like, well, that's it. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, it's done.
This
Yeah.
is it. This is it. This is finished. And it's like you take that approach to your creative work. You take that
Yeah.
approach to your talk that I'm just going to, we're going to dance for a minute in this. And then
And we're going to know.
when that thing hits zero, we're done.
It's interesting you say that, right? Like I'm now just starting to lean into it a bit more. I think that I did these talks a couple of years ago. The first one, 2015, I think. Second one, 2016. So I did them back to back. And after the first one, I think I felt less confident than I did before I went into it. Because the imposter syndrome, as soon as I got off that stage, he just came back into my life in a really big way.
Yeah.
He's like, you did this? Oh, you think you're a big shot now, eh? Like just that, that's
right there. It's like,
and
no one's going to talk
yeah.
to you after this. We're going to
No,
it's
yeah,
like, oh
no
my
one's
God.
going to talk to you. Like the well's going to run dry. No speaking gigs. This, that, and it took a lot of people around me to remind me that did something for them. And seeing the comments on YouTube, getting emails from people, direct messages, texts, conversations, people telling me that, wow, that thing did something for me. It took me a while to step back and be like, wow, isn't it probably the most amazing thing that you can do as a human being to inspire somebody or to give them the tools by which they're going to change essentially their life, right?
Yeah.
Whatever vector it's on, personal, professional, academic. And that's happened now a couple of times where I've had to tell myself, stop being meek about it. Like, you know the stuff, you're still putting in your 10,000 hours. Like you're nowhere near 20, 25 years into this, but you've put in substantial time. Like I think I've been a working professional. I've had like gainful employment since 2008. So almost like just 11 years, but I'm discounting all the things I did before then too. Like in high school when I was a kid, reading the side projects, the failed startups, this, that. So when I look back far enough, I've put in more than 10 to 15 years of collective just work and application at this thing that eventually became marketing, communications, design. And so like what's happening now, what I'm starting to find as I'm leaning into it more, that the imposter syndrome voice is beginning to subside a little more. But I'm also moving through the world differently. And that feedback piece that you just mentioned, I do think I'm becoming a lot more stubborn. I do think that I'm becoming a lot more resistant to feedback.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
I detest feedback. And I don't know if it's because I'm a creative. I don't know if it's because my old ass is getting too old, and I'm like, fuck you, I'm that old guy on a cane. Like, you kids don't know. It's I think it's a lot of, I would say, dings in life where I got feedback. I tried to incorporate something, and it was less than my expectation for it or my vision, and just realizing that this actually is my vision. There's nothing to be ashamed about. The collective feedback only gives you mediocrity, and that is not what I'm going for. Like if 25 people give you feedback on a piece of art, you'll get something that no one likes. But if one person does a piece of art, you'll get something that polarizes people. And
of course.
That is what I'm going for at every stage. I'm like, I'm doing me, man. If you don't like it, there's a million and one other podcasts. Like, go to another agency, have someone else do your thing. I'm like, but if you want me to do it, I'm swinging for the fences every time. And
I love that, man. I love that. Like you said something that's made me think about what I've done recently with reconfiguring my goals, reconfiguring what success is to me. I think I was so focused on the come up stage of my career. Like I think I'm confident enough to say I've arrived, because for the last couple of years, like probably up until last year, I was in the happy to be here phase.
Right.
Which is, oh my God, I'm so happy that you thought of me for this. I'm happy you invited me to this. Thank you for thinking of me. Yeah. And that feeling's never going to go away. But even when I didn't feel it, I would say it just because of the insecurity. But now I'm like, hey, like you can start to trust yourself. You can start to accept that you don't have to be the expert, but you can be an expert among many. But what I did prior to that stage is I would have like a list of all of my contemporaries. And I'd be like, I need to beat this person. I need to follow what they're doing, and this, that. Right. And then like as I started to sort of experience upward and forward mobility, I realized that I'm doing just that, because I'm sourcing visions of success from like 25 people around me that is ultimately leading me to curb my growth, to curb my potential for.
You're gonna be Yeah, you're not going to be
Slap.
the tall poppy anymore. You're not going to add your special thing to it. It's going to
That's
be,
it. So
yeah.
I told myself, like, when have you been your most productive, your most creative, your most inventive? It's when I've been the underdog, when I've always felt this feeling of I'm never going to achieve it. So I just nuked that entire list and I reestablished new goals, which are so far out of reach, and I'm perfectly comfortable never reaching them. As long as
Yes,
I feel like
you're
I'm just going to
going
keep.
for it. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. So I've accepted that I'm never going to reach those goals. They're ridiculous.
yeah.
But in the pursuit of them, I'm hoping some amazing things are going to
You
happen.
know, that's Tiger Woods once said that. He said at this point, when he was at the peak of his career, he said at this,
Yeah.
people are like, how do you do this? He goes, I don't compete against anyone. I compete against myself. I'm like,
Mm.
what do you do when you're the best? What does Jordan do when, you know, you're at the top of the game? Who are you
Yeah.
trying to beat? I'm like, everyone is
Yeah.
trying to beat you. It's,
Yep.
you know, the old
That's so
Detroit
true.
t-shirt, Detroit versus the world. This is the attitude to this thing where it's like compete against yourself, set unrealistic goals that are completely unachievable, and just go for it. And like if you miss an unrealistic goal, you're probably doing really well. Like when
Oh,
you look
dude.
back, you're like, yo, I did like 19 TED Talks, I did this, launched this company,
Yeah,
spoke
yeah,
at a
yeah.
university, but like all this other stuff comes out and you just kind of you enjoy that journey so much more. I have the same sort of goal with Black in Canada, that platform I created.
Yes, I'm happy we're talking about this because
Demonstrating
yeah, okay.
Black excellence. And I'm like, my goal in that is to transform the thinking of all Black people in Canada.
I
That's the
love
number
that.
one goal. Like, I want to change the minds of everyone. Not the minds, the thinking. And I'm like, that's never going to happen in my lifetime. Let's go. You know, and it's off to the races. And every time I get an email, I have this folder called Love. And every time I get an
Yo,
email from so,
I have one too.
yeah,
What the
well,
heck?
sweet.
I love, and I call it love too. That's amazing.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's sweet. I get an email from someone saying, "Hey, this changed my life. I saw this post. I'm doing some research at high school. All the kids in the class are using this. You know, all the kids in the school are using this for Black History Month to do profiles on people. And the fact that there are hundreds of profiles and all of them can do a different one, and they're all Canadian and they're all alive. Like 99% of them are alive. A few have died, and that is changing the thinking of people." And when you change people's thinkings, you change their life. You change the future. You change what's possible. And all of a sudden, it's not like, oh, you know, little Hakeem at school can become a carpenter he's good with his hands. He can actually become a surgeon.
Yeah.
Like that has a dramatic difference in your economic earning potential in 50 years.
Ricardo, I've been thinking about Black in Canada for a long time, but specifically in the last 24 hours. So I remember when you first told me about this idea, we were crossing over that bridge from the airport into the city of Nova Scotia. We were crossing over the bridge, and you pointed out to where the settlement used to be
Yes.
for immigrants.
Yes.
And I remember getting chills thinking about that. And you were saying that there was a documentary coming out or a TV show that recently came out at that time that was telling the story, the untold story of people who lived there as Black Nova Scotians, essentially.
Right. There's one guy who's still living there, and he's living in a trailer. He has like a pit bull. He's not leaving.
He's got his cane. He's like,
got
back
a
in
kid.
my
He's
day.
like, I'm not leaving. And he is still there to this day. I'm like, I want to interview this guy. Because I was trying to meet him when we were there that time, but it was like, you know, it was a whirlwind and it was an ice storm and the whole thing. Couldn't make it, but I want to get back there and interview this guy because I want to hear that story. I'm like, why are you the only person out here after like 50 years?
It's amazing what you've done because I always look to sort of the Black struggle in North America, around the world.
Yeah.
And it's ongoing. To say that it happened in the past would be foolish. It's still ongoing.
Yeah.
And in many ways, you are paving the way. You are modeling what other minorities, other marginalized groups need to do. The way that you're mobilizing right now with movements like Black Lives Matter, the way that you're taking the Oscars to task for representation, so on and so forth. The sort of conversations that are happening on Twitter, where you're completely tearing down institutions. I'm looking to that and I'm thinking to myself, like, why is this conversation? Why are we not, as Muslims, doing more to support the movement, doing more to support our Black brothers and sisters? Because your struggle is, you know, in many ways, as marginalized groups,
Injustice
we're all
anywhere
in
is
this
injustice
together.
everywhere. Yeah.
And so I'm looking to that, and I thought about it specifically yesterday at the Met Gala. So all of these tweets were coming out, and I see this one post that has 4 South Asian stars in it. It has Hassan Minhaj, it has Aziz Ansari, it has the guy from Star Wars and the Night of. I'm forgetting his name.
haven't even seen Star Wars.
Riz Ahmed and Mindy Kaling. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was looking at that, I was like, oh man, that's brown excellence. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And my heart sank. I was like, oh, that is literally all of the brown talent that is popping right now in Hollywood.
Right. They're
And I
on
was
one
like,
hand. And you're like,
I was like, what is going on here, man? And like
Yeah.
friggin' Riz Ahmed, he was in Star Wars and he was playing a truck driver, an interstellar truck driver in there too, right? And I was
Truck
like,
drive, of course.
God damn, right? We were so close. But, I guess baby steps is still progress. But I don't know. Like I was talking to somebody who I consider to be a mentor recently, and she was telling me that now is not the time for people like us who are aware of this, who are in positions of influence, to be meek. Like doing the baby step thing can actually hurt us in the long run, because that effort, that time that we have right now is precious, and we need to be the pioneers that are busting down doors. Like you put out this blog, you put yourself out there. Like by creating Black in Canada, you have effectively potentially shut out some potential sources of income. Like you might.
Sure.
You might have prevented some organizations from working with you, right? And screw that, you don't want to work with them anyway.
100% true. And it also conversely brought business our way.
Exactly. But now here, I'm thinking about the world that Keon's going to grow up in. He's going to have to deal with maybe 25% less of the shit that you and I had to deal with, or you specifically have to deal with as a Black man in North America. And you're hoping that maybe he can continue that work. But I'm recently starting to own that. I'm like, hey, you know what? It's time to stop being coy about this. Because there's a lot of people who, when I think back to the work that I've done about productivity and marketing and all the things that I have some expertise in, I have people messaging me, people who remind me of a younger version of myself, like young South Asian, first generation Muslim people saying, hey, I decided to go into this program because of you. I decided to do this because of you. So that burden of leadership, I'm now changing my thinking around that. I need to do more than just give you some, like a career path. I have to do my part to change the environment around me for the better.
Wow, thank you for saying that.
I'm a big fan, man.
I really do appreciate that. I get requests from different groups to actually duplicate that platform and what it's doing for them. Muslims, LGBT,
yep.
Spanish community.
I know, man.
Like people are just like, yo, could I just I'm like the disabled community. Like all these people have come to me and just said, is there a way for you to take this and like build one for us? And I'm like, I'm working on it right now as a platform for sale.
Ricardo, like the neighborhood I grew up in, like I think Gloria and I are both from Scarborough, right?
Yeah.
So we're both from Scarborough, particularly the neighborhood that I grew up in, very homogenous. It was immigrant Muslim community. In terms of like socioeconomic status, I would say we were on the lower end of the spectrum. And as somebody who was interested in marketing and starting an agency, working at an agency, media, the arts, so on and so forth, brother, no role models whatsoever. Yeah. No one on my street, no one within like a 10, 20 kilometer radius. All I was told growing up was like doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's your only way out of here.
That's it.
You know how powerful it would have been for me at the time to have a publication that was, Muslims in Canada or Muslim in Canada or Muslim excellence, and to see stories of people that were around the world that were doing what I was doing. That would have changed me completely. Like I'm starting to think now about all of the Black youth who are reading this publication, who will look back at reading these stories that, especially when you tell me that it's happening in schools, who will have made radical life decisions, transformations based on that simple story. That's all they need to see. They just need to see representation that isn't sports or entertainment.
Right? Sports and entertainment are the two categories we keep to an extreme minimum. I'm talking less than 1% of the contributions.
I'm happy, and you have to, because that's already well saturated.
Why won't you put this person in there? I'm like, yeah, they're dancing, they're having a ball or bouncing a ball. I'm like, that automatically puts you down in the 1%. And I'm like, yeah, we got two people to do that. I'm like, they don't need more attention. Yeah. I'm like, show me the scientists. Show me the teachers. Show me the politicians.
HR professionals, accountants.
Right. Show me the entrepreneur. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, entrepreneurship. Like, you want to talk about changing your life? Like, start a business. Like, let me do a feature on you.
Amen.
Like, that type of thing of really taking ownership of who you are and your accomplishments and really seeing yourself as excellent and walking that way in the world. And a lot of the time, I was talking to someone yesterday about this. We don't expect to win, and this is sort of a consequence of colonialism and living in a community where you're not the majority and you are not seen as viable or enough. So you don't expect to win at anything. I don't go for a job and go, I nailed it. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have this expectation. And I have white friends that go in and be like, oh, I nailed it. And they don't get it. Or something happens, but they always think they nailed it.
Microaggressions, yeah.
They have this automatic expectation that this is mine. I should have it. And, you know, you can have one if I decide not to have it first.
Yeah.
And how would it change young children's lives if they went through life just thinking, yeah, I could do that. I see my little son, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to climb on that couch.
Yeah.
He's not thinking, well, you know, maybe it's somebody else's couch. It's too big. He's just like, he's going for it. And just that going for it, the dealing with the imposter syndrome, that I'm on the TED stage, I'm like, you know what? I got this. And when you change that mindset to setting yourself up to win as you go in, it massively changes the results you produce. So that when I say change the thinking of Black people in Canada, that's what I'm talking about. I want to shift your mindset to one of like, I should be there. This is my country. I deserve this. I pay my tax. I'm like,
of course,
start speaking up, start leaning in, start expecting to get some ROI on what it is that you've put in.
Not all feelings of entitlement are bad. And I think sometimes we're conditioned to think that feeling entitled is the wrong way to go about things. But I think the things that we're trying to feel entitled to are things that the dominating power structure has felt entitled to for a very long time.
Look, there's something called underprivileged, but there's very few people that mention overprivileged. And if you even type it into a Word document, it comes up as an incorrect spelling because it's overprivileged.
Even Google was down,
If I'm underprivileged, who has my privilege? Who has that automatic expectation of excellence, that automatic expectation of wealth, of this, of like you go into a bank, they assume you have more money. Like that's a privilege that is completely blind because you've had it for so long that it's just normal.
Yeah.
It is your normal. And I understand people say, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I'm like, dude, there is no other brown person that I'm looking at who's creating a marketing agency like for 100 miles. Like, I can't see anybody. I go through life feeling like an imposter because I'm like, should I be here? Am I the one? Like, am I doing this right? Like, what should I say? Should I put my face on the website? Like, will people do, like, all of those questions, like all of that mental bandwidth and energy that you're spending existing. Other people don't have to exist. And they're just like, and they skip ahead and they move through life. It's like a clear road and everybody's just like, come on through, keep going, keep going.
Keep going.
And it's amazing how a mind shift change completely transform where you're going in life. It controls everything.
That's all it takes, man. That's really all it takes.
You just gotta go for it. You just gotta, I mean, so much going on in my head. There's so many questions I want to ask. I mean,
sorry.
No. It was Jay-Z released his album. He did the whole download on Samsung or whatever it is, and there was
Magna Carta, Holy Grail. That was the one. Yeah,
I love that album.
Yeah.
Too many N-words, just saying, but dial that back and it'll be even great.
Yeah.
The what's his name? Timberland was one of the producers on there, and he was talking about what he did for the album. So he's like, listen, Jay, you spit your rhymes, you do your thing, and when you finish, give it to me, and I'm going to put my stank on it, and then it'll become incredible. And to approach someone who's at the multi-million billionaire level,
of course,
say, you're doing what you're doing, but you see this lane right here called production? Don't touch me. I'm like, I got this. I'm going to put my stink on it. And I'm like, I just love the way he approached it, where it was, what I have to add to this is so unique and so special that it will take it to the next level. And when I see you do that or talk about doing that in your business and talk about doing that in, you know what? I'm going to stop following people. I'm going to put my stank on it. I'm going to show, I'm going to put my view. I'm like, are you seeing young brown people coming in and they're like, yo, I gotta speak up a little more. I gotta say something. I gotta leave something for other people to come and climb, break down. It's like, hey, jump on this and go somewhere else.
Pay it forward and help your people. Help you put them on, right?
Yeah, it's pull people in, make stuff happen.
Of course.
Most of the success or most of the things you've probably achieved in your life, we haven't talked about this before, but I'll say this: it has been because of an invitation.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree with you.
And it's this is when I look at everybody who's successful, take race out of it, take gender out of it. Success comes from an invitation. Someone says, hey, why don't you open an office over here? I see something. Why don't you come and speak at this thing? I can't make it, but I want you to fill in. I think you're good enough.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know if like you get called up. You know?
Yep.
You're like, hey, you're in the big leagues now. Well, I was in AAA. I'm good. And it's like,
and the only way to sort of maximize that opportunity to be prepared for it, to feel lucky, is to be prepared for it, right? Like that Oprah Winfrey quote, luck is opportunity meets preparation. Yeah. And so that's exactly how Starting Point happened. So Drew couldn't make it. So they had Drew initially signed up for that. And there was a schedule, Drew Dudley, there was a scheduling conflict. And he's like, look, I can't make it. They asked for some recommendations. Can you do this instead? I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. Yeah. And I stepped up there, and that was the first time where I was like, oh man, I'm able to now translate all of this writing that I've been doing for years about productivity into an actual workshop. Fantastic. Somebody else wants this. Let's find them.
Yeah. I think Drew is the person that recommended us as well for that. Drew's an
awesome
guy.
There you go, man. He's just paying it forward all the time. And I'm starting to do the same as well, right? Oh, yeah. So like there's some dates that I can't make, and there's like people in my circle right now that I've worked with, I've personally like mentored, groomed, or whatnot. Or just like even if I haven't, I just see them from a distance. I'm like, yeah, you know this inside out. Yeah. Better you than me.
Yeah, and it's pulling these people in. The exact same thing on our end, where we've recommended 2, 3, 4 people to the last Starting Point conference, and up there and they nailed it. They were like, "Where'd you find these people?" I'm like, "These are our friends. These are the people." Like, here's Vancouver. Here's Ricky Nichols. Here's Marie Poulin. And it's like we pull these people, put them in, and they create that ripple, and they're able to do what other people have also given stuff to me. I recently got a recommendation to go speak at Peel for a big thing. Amazing. And I'm excited about it. And I was like, thank you. So it's this, you give and you get, but it's always this invitation. This is how it starts. And once you get one and you get vetted and you get that blessing, it starts to roll.
Hey, to your earlier point though about like you have to deal with, and when I say you, like me as well, we have to deal with the added pressure of walking into a room and not just being guys who do marketing. Like we walk into a room and you're the black guy who does marketing, and I'm the brown guy who does marketing.
What did you bring to the table? I've asked that question. Like we were sitting.
I know, man.
And like everyone's going around doing stuff, and I'm normally a quiet, laid back. I consider myself an introvert.
Me too.
And this guy looks straight at me and goes, "What do you bring to the table?" I'm like, "Well, what do I think? I own the company."
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
I learned a very valuable lesson recently. So our company was recently hired to work on a project for a nonprofit, and we were hired in addition to like our qualifications. We were hired because we have a very diverse team, like diversity across the board on different levels. Yeah. And so we were hired for that. And I remember the person that hired us, I was talking to her recently. She was like, the reason I was so very like strict with you in the beginning was because I knew there were eyes on us. There were eyes on us because it was going to be seen as a colored woman helping a colored man and his company come work with us. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that pressure sometimes too? Like when you get that invitation, as you mentioned, by somebody that's part of the tribe, do you feel this pressure to over deliver because of that?
Am I thinking back to when someone of color recommended me?
Because it's always like a don't make us look bad. It's not like a don't make me look bad. It's like
don't ruin this for everyone else that comes after. He's like, don't shut the door, buddy. Like you're coming in. Yeah. I feel it like a 5% because I trust that I'm going. I put 100% in if I'm doing something. Like if I want to do design, or it's a film project, or it's a project with a major bank, and we are brought in to develop the strategy to transform social media across globally on
Sure.
And I was like, what?
Wow.
And she's like, come on in, you're the ones. And it's like, woman of color, put me in, she's in charge, she's signing the check, and she's like, work with these people, make this thing happen. And like
amazing,
putting together this global strategy. And it was like, okay. And it's the pressure's there, but I trust myself now. I just know that if you call me up, I am not even worried about it. I'm like, I'm just going to do a good job.
It's interesting. I saw you, like, for the last little while, you've been tweeting a lot of Malcolm Gladwell. Like, you've been reading The Tipping Point again. Yeah. I think about the 10,000 hour rule a lot. Yeah. And I did the math, and I was like, maybe I'm like halfway there. Maybe I'm just a little more than halfway there. When I say specifically focused on one thing, so I've had a very diverse skill set, and I've been half-assing a lot of things. And I think for the first time in my life, I'm trying to whole-ass one or two.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be a polymath anymore. I've given up on that. I wanted to be smart at every subject possible, and now I'm just owning that. It doesn't make sense. It's counterproductive. And I love the African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so now I'm trying to find, that not just my immediate team, but like family, friends, people around me that can sort of be that balance point for the weaknesses that I have. I think I've stopped investing in getting my weaknesses up to
awesome,
satisfactory.
It's like, yeah, they are what they are. Just focus on the strengths and.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm just like, why am I trying to build up competency in this when I have that thing that's great? I can take that to amazing.
Yeah.
Like, why shouldn't I lean into that? And so, like, that's why I've really started doubling down on the speaking, because I was like, hey, you're good at this. And I think you have the potential to go from good to great. Whereas if you focus on, like, that aspect of marketing and communications, at most you're going to bring it to something you can put on the website and be like, we now offer this as a service.
Right. And
you're not going to like it.
After 5,000 hours of effort. Put that into, yeah, that's
totally.
Again, I hear that as a sign of maturity and a sign of wisdom, of like putting in enough hours to know that I'm gonna get a B in that class and it's enough to get me through. Like, I don't need to get straight A's across the board. Someone had asked me this question years ago about, what advice would you give to students? It was in Ryerson I was talking, and they were like, what advice would you give students? I said, okay, here we go. I said, this is going to be unconventional, but I said, it's better to get B's and drink beers with people than it is to get straight A's.
Man, we're kindred spirits, man.
I'm like, dude, the friends you make over beers will bring you more money than straight A's.
One of my students messaged me, and he's like, hey, I'm really sorry, I can't get this assignment in because I'm working on this, that. And I was like, look, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, unsolicited advice, this assignment is worth 2%. You're already sitting at a 90. You should probably save that 4 hours and go work on your business. You're going to be happy that you did. Because I'm like, nothing you're doing over here is a gatekeeper job. Like, you're not trying to become a doctor. You're not trying to become a lawyer. You're not trying to become an engineer. You're trying to go into marketing and communications. Dude, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't even go to university. I'm sorry, University of Toronto Scarborough, if you're listening to this. I would just skip. I would go straight from high school. I would go intern at 3 companies. I would try to create my own sort of university experience altogether. And that's how I would do it. Unless it's a gatekeeper industry, why do you actually need higher education?
You actually, the funny thing is you don't, but they've set this thing up so that everybody believes that they do. And again,
it's a business.
Back to this. It's your mindset. Like, if you free your mind from thinking that you need that, or that, the gargoyle on your shoulder is going to come and get you. Once you free yourself from that, it's an open field. Like,
100%.
Everything. It's like, I actually don't need this. I started my first business at 18, right out of high school. And I did the math. I was working as a stock boy at this place called High and Zell's. I don't even know if it still exists. And I was stacking shelves. I was making like $4 an hour or whatever it was 100 years ago. And I did the math, and I said, if I work every day and I work overtime, I won't make enough money to go to school. So
you know exactly how much is going to be in your bank. Yeah,
exactly. Totally. It's 100%. It's like, this is it. These are the hours. This is what you're making.
You're trading time for money. That's what you're doing.
I quit that job, and I went to the library because we didn't have the internet. That's how long ago this was. And I read a book on how to paint houses. It was 20 pages, sitting in the library there in Oshawa, and I went, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, we went out, got a $5,000 loan from RBC student loan, and we opened a business.
There you go.
And within, I think, 4 or 6 weeks, we had 16 employees.
Holy crap,
we had
man.
Contracts with the city of Whitby to paint arenas and municipal buildings. Like, we just, again, too young and too dumb to know you shouldn't be putting in bids for city contracts.
Yeah.
We went in and won.
Go for it, yeah.
We won. We're like, woo! Called up a newspaper and went, hey, why don't you write an article on us? We'll email it to you. We sent it to them. They loved it. They printed the whole thing verbatim. Man. Then they sent a photographer out, took a picture of us, and published it like a half-page thing in the local newspaper. Business just skyrocketed after that, and we just kept getting calls. Every call is worth about $1,000 to me, and we were doing 3 to 4 calls a day, come out and do paint my house, do this, do that. And I was just booking people. I'm like, I need to hire staff. And then next thing you know, I have 16 people in the back of a van,
Jeez.
dropping them off all over the place. And I'm just like picking people. And I'm like, payroll was like 10 grand every 2 weeks.
Wow,
Like,
that is incredible,
from
man.
a $5,000 loan, it was just, I didn't even know what that was at the time. I was like, yeah, well, this is what we're doing. I'd show up at the bank with like all these checks and like, come on in, sir. And I'm like, no, I'll wait in line. They're like, no, come to the front. And I'm like, but there are other people here I would like I'm completely unaware that when you come in to the bank at 18 years old with $10,000 a week in checks,
They're like, what's going on here? Yeah.
they were like, they knew my name. They're glad I came. And I was like,
Yeah.
everybody's like, who's this black guy coming in here getting treated like royalty? I'm like, because I put money in the bank.
Of course. That's
Not
amazing, man.
Not even being
like,
aware that was something unique and special. I was trying to go to school. So I was trying to make enough money to pay for my deal.
right. Man, that is such an incredible story, man. Does that exist in like a blog or something? Like, well,
I still have the newspaper clipping. I'm gonna post
more
it as
people
a
need to read
throwback
that.
Thursday one day. I still have the thing. I have my stupid little haircut, my little skinny neck, and my little polo shirt with the RHR painters on it. It was hilarious to think that we did that, but
It's amazing,
was
man.
brute force and ignorance. Like that's like I've just.
But that's fine because I feel like everyone's different. I mean, cliches aside, when I went to university, I knew what I wanted to do by third year, and I just was going through the motions for the last year. Like I just needed to drag my feet through the last couple of credits to get this piece of paper that I thought was going to be worth something. And I don't want to discredit the University of Toronto Scarborough. Like they're trying very hard. They're doing a lot of good work out there. I wouldn't be where I am without them, but it wasn't the in-class stuff that I learned from because I did my degree in English. Mm-hmm. And while that did help inform the storytelling side of of the work that I do, it was everything that happened outside of the classroom that contributed to my, I would say mostly contributed to my success. I think, wild idea out there, in a couple of years, the universities and colleges are going to have a very tough time dealing with just-in-time learning, dealing with, listening to podcasts versus sitting in a class, listening to a tenured professor who doesn't have the same experience. Sort of the real experience, the pedigree, if you will. And I do think a big change is coming. And I think the one thing that universities and colleges should do is allow you to graduate when you feel ready. I know that's so far out there, but
that's not going to happen anytime soon. They don't want to break your heart on this one, but
I know.
I know what you're saying.
It's a completely contrarian viewpoint. I know, I totally understand that these institutions have existed far, longer than my wild idea over here. But I think it comes down to this, to go back to a Pablo Picasso quote. You cited the one earlier. I'll give you another one maybe to cap this off, which is the meaning of life is to find your gift and the purpose of life is to give it away. And I think that universities and colleges are great sort of incubators and safe places where people can experiment, learn about themselves, learn about the world. But I think if you find your gift in that 4-year continuum, I think the university should be more accommodating, the institution should be more accommodating to find you ways to get out there sooner and give your gift rather than staying back and experiencing those diminished returns, which is not just time and opportunity cost, it's also debt, right? But who knows? I mean, I'll have to wait until I get into politics to think.
Educational institutions, people forget, are businesses.
They are, man.
And people think, it's this, and I'm like, it's a business. It's like going to McDonald's every day. It's a business. They take your tuition, they take your money, they have trust funds.
It's in their best interest, of course. Yeah, it's in their best interest to perpetuate the idea.
To keep you there, locked in and have this debt. So
and there you go. Splash Effect shuts down tomorrow after this podcast, right? Colleges and universities. One thing we can help you do is to boost engagement, retention, and recruitment. So,
Splash Effect for the win.
Yeah.
But it's the but thinking about, what was I going to say? What people need today is really just-in-time learning. Like, how do you get that? How do you, by the time you go to school and study for 4 years, when you get out, everything you're certified in is outdated. Because if you can write it in a book, you've drawn a line in the sand and the world keeps moving.
Preparing you for the jobs of yesterday, right?
Exactly. So how do you prepare yourself for jobs that haven't been invented yet? What's a social media manager 5 years ago? Everyone's like, what? You need a manager? Like, that's never going to be. Like, I was offered a 6-figure salary to go to California to be a manager of a social media team years ago.
Yeah.
And people are just like, what? Like,
now what's that? You're going to manage Twitter and Facebook all day?
Like, what are you going to do? Tweet? I'm like, yeah. Like that. Like now there's ROI and metrics and people understand what that is.
Yeah.
So it's how do you begin to prepare for the future? And I think creative people have a leg up because we always have this idea. We can see things. We have what I call vision.
Of course.
And most
100%.
people have sight. Most people have to
love
see
that.
the thing before they can believe it. And people with vision, the creatives, actually can see things before they exist. We're empaths. We're feeling like, the world's going in a different place. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know about this university thing. I'm like, what evidence do you have to back that up other than just, I just don't think this is going to work out in 5 years.
Yeah. It's, I read a definition of creativity, and I forgot if it was like from a quote or like just from a straight up dictionary, but it was like the ability to see connections between seemingly disparate points, so that like things that are obvious to you that aren't obvious to everyone else, that's really what creativity is. And so maybe like I'm seeing this coming change with the education system, and people are going to be like, Hamza, you're a crazy person. But maybe 30 years from now, when colleges and universities are like, how is Skillshare interrupting the flow
Harvard.
Why are students opting to not go to college and university after high school, even though they have the means to do so? So I think there's something there, and I love what you said. Most people have sight, creatives have vision. That's interesting.
I completely agree with what you're saying. Like those institutions have to transform into on-demand, quick, digital. I'm going to sit over Skype, get my stuff. I'm going to go out and put it on a laptop, because coming to school, sitting in the class, reading the book, dude, that's unless there are about 5 things you need to do that with: law, engineering, doctor, maybe a couple other things.
Basically the gatekeeper organizations, right?
Pharmacists, like those are the things. Unless you're doing that, and one of the interesting industries that are going to be upset by technology, I read this in Fast Company, in the next 5 to 10 years, is law. He said everything's written, everything's by the book. Why do you need a lawyer? You can plug in your case.
LegalZoom.com and PandaDoc. Look at these, man. Like, we only consult a lawyer when we absolutely have to, and that's like once a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's.
By the way, Ricardo, I'm really sorry, man. We totally lost track of time over here.
Gotcha. We got about 1 or 2 minutes.
I know. I'm so sorry, man.
No. This is good.
I feel like we didn't even get through your list, man. We were just like going off on tangents.
Well, I don't have a list, man. This is the beauty of this podcast, is that we just have
I'm really hoping that we can do like episode 2, 3, like 5, 15.
For sure. I
just
totally mean that. Like, let's do this again, because this was so good. We didn't get a chance to get into everything we wanted to today, but for sure we're gonna have Hamza back and definitely get into all the creative juices that we had going on today. We're going to have a part 2 of this for sure. I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you, but I know you got to run. So I'm going to shut this episode short this time. I'll ask you 2 questions just so we
absolutely. And I'm so sorry, Ricardo. I mean,
please don't apologize. Like, this is how life goes. I'm going to say 2 questions. You're going to choose one of these 2 answers.
Oh, wow.
Snow or sand?
Ooh, snow or sand? Do I have to choose one of them, right? I'm going to say snow.
Wax on or wax off?
Wax on.
All right, and that's it. This has been Hamza Khan.
Oh, buddy, you just planted. You won Inception on me right now. I'm going to spend the next couple of days thinking about what Ricardo actually meant by those questions.
I mean, nothing. Tell the people how they can reach you and where can they find out if they want to know more about your book when this comes out, or how they can connect with you, Splash Effect. Where can they reach you? Absolutely. So the 2 platforms that I'm the most active on these days are Instagram and Twitter. I'm having a lot of fun on Instagram. My handle on both is Hamza K, HAMZAK. I'm on everything else as well, but that's where I'm, on there on a daily basis. Today. And then hamzakhan.ca to learn more about me, sort of the work that I'm doing, the projects I'm involved in, and you can find a lot of my writing there as well. So hamzakhan.ca, and then Hamza K on Twitter and Instagram. Wonderful. I'm glad you were here. Thank you.
My man, amazing. Take care, my man. Bye.